welcome to another Bible story time with Becky. Today, we're going to be talking about lions. So here's my own ferocious lion. He's not so into Bible story time. He's got to go. This week, in honor of Thanksgiving, which is coming up in a little bit, I thought we could get into a little bit of a Thanksgiving mindset. We should be reading stories about how people in the Bible gave thanks. So, this week, we're going to start off with a story that you may not think is so much about someone giving thanks, but I think it shows how important it is to have a grateful heart. We are going to be in Daniel 6. Daniel's going into the lion's den. Let's get to it. Before I start, there is a word in this story. I don't know especially what it means or how to say it. Basically, it's an advisor, someone who gives advice to the king. And I will say it wrong because it makes me happy too. It pleased Darius, the king, to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. So they're the ones making sure the king doesn't lose any money, doesn't lose any renown in the land. Now Daniel was so distinct on the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They were trying to find out if Daniel was doing something wrong against the king so they could get him fired. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed." So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. "Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being except to you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den?" The king answered, "The decree stands, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed." Then they said to the king, "Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day." When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to King Darius and said to him, "Remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, who you serve continually, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel answered, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angels, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I done any wrong before you, your majesty." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. So why did Daniel get thrown into the lion's den? Because the satraps changed the law so that it was illegal to pray to God and give thanks. Did Daniel care? No, he went and prayed anyway. He knew that it was so important to be grateful to God for the things he had been given. So I want us to remember that as we're going into a time where we are trying to think intentionally about being grateful, even in a year where it feels hard to be grateful. So I suggest you find a jar and you get little pieces of paper and you write down on the little pieces of paper things you are grateful for. And if you're feeling not in the Thanksgiving spirit, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling disappointed, that's okay. But I want you to remember that there are things in your life that you are still thanking God for. So, for example, I am grateful for my family. And I hope that this is helpful to you and to your whole family as you go into Thanksgiving. That's all I have for you this week, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All right. Good evening, Clearwater. It's good to be with you guys. Let's just stand together and worship. Just as your heart is ready to sing, just join in with worship. Let's just take a second to quiet ourselves, just to bring our spirit, our heart, and our mind together, that we might just worship God with spirit and truth together tonight. I could just sit and wait for all your goodness, hope to feel your presence. I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you, hope to feel something again.
I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. And I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. And I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. And I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have
I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. And I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. And I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy. And I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy light the path before me. You have called me higher. You have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. And you have called me higher. You have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. Oh, you have called me higher. You have called me deeper.
If you guys down there.
And has he journey together, encourage each other. So I pray that tonight encouragement sorrows like sea goes roll. Whatever my lot has gone, as well. And know the bliss of your my sin are the is nailed to the gates, maybe for the God who comes to save. Bow for him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chain. Every knee before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow for him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? He's roaring with power and sing our back. Every knee be. Our God is the for the sin of the world. For the Lamb will bow be him. And you're
Christians to the most needy, the power, and the ministry with vulnerable And tonight we have a
So there's lots of ways to partner.
that you are thrift store, and just by going down and shopping at their thrift store. Christmas is coming, you can go down there and you're watching as mild symptoms experience. So maybe the quarantine period, being sick, just stayed home 10 days and service next week, of course. We are providing 20 meals this year for families from Wendler Middle School, providing them with a full turkey. Complete meals. Heavenly Father, in your word, that we will message challenge tonight. Over the right in that end of God's patience and mercy, to punish them for their sins. So in that sense, story of judgment. God and his Joshua is mainly a story of in God's relationship with his people, and is and he tells the people, he says, heart and soul, that not one promises the Lord. Every promise has been fulfilled, not failed. And it's also a high point to go. Israel in Joshua's generation is for the most part obedient to God, to his covenant. Keep the covenant, things for them. That throughout the book, this happens over instructions to Joshua, and then the next is those of the people, and then the people do what Joshua told them God wanted them to do. And an example of that is in chapter where the book tells stones from the Jordan River. Joshua 12 and says, go to the river. And then it tells, and then the 12 guys went and they got stones from the river and they built a monument. And that's the pattern in the book of Joshua. God says it, Joshua. But there are exceptions in Joshua. The story of the people of Gibeon that Pastor Mike preached about last a treaty with people Gibeon. Joshua chapter. And after the Battle of Jericho, incredible victory for the people of God, in which God showed in a miraculous way that he would be fighting on their behalf as they followed his instructions. God had given some very unusual actually attack, right? And then on the day they march around the city, they march around, and then they all shout, and then the walls shouted so loud that the sonic vibration of God miraculously to fall down. This is not typical battle strategy. The Israelites needed this strategy again. You do it like time. This was a experience. It was God. People, if they would be victorious. This also served to show the nation better than the Canaanites. It was not strategy. It was not even and good than the others. The book of Deuteronomy is set just before Joshua. Chapter 9, starting the verse 4. Driven them out before. Do not say, has brought me here to take possession of land because of my. No, it is on account of the of these nations that the Lord is going to drive them out before you. It is not because of your righteousness or your integrity that you are going in, but on account of the wickedness of these nations. So at the battle, God did this miraculous fall down thing and show the people beyond a doubt that what was really going on here was that God was judging the people of Canaan. The Israelites were not simply invading because they were stronger and they can take whatever they want. No, that was not the situation. This invasion is an act of God's judgment, not a normal war between nations. And so the Battle of Jericho was to demonstrate that to God's people. God gave to the people marching around battle strategy was that the Israelites were not taking any plunder at all from the city. right? Because this was the first battle in the Promised Land, it was symbolic of God's involvement in the war. Everything that came from Jericho was supposed to be, quote, devoted to God. Everything is to be devoted to God. And there was two ways that things could be devoted to God. Either precious metals, and for whether that was people or farming, structures of the city itself, all the contents of it was to be destroyed. Enrich the army of Israel. It wasn't about them getting plunder. It was about the judgment. By the cities and live in those to be devoted to God. But chapter tells us this. It says, "But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. There's a lot to say about that. That's a very interesting and powerful statement. But we're going to get to that and talk about that verse of what happens here. With that ominous foreshadowing about the next battle in the invasion. See, after at Jericho, Israel was feeling pretty good about things, so they sent some guys up to the next city up into the mountains. They would be the next small city. And it was much smaller. Saw it, they came. They don't even all have to go up there. Some of the army up, and we will be able to take Ai. So that's what they do. A small force goes up to Ai, but when they get there, the men of Ai come out to fight them. And immediately terrified, they turn and start running away. Now, turning your back on the enemy in a battle is never a good idea. And as they're fleeing, the army of Ai comes out and kills 36 men as they're running away. When they arrive, the rest of them arrive back to the camp and tell what happened. How could some incredible at Jericho? God has just shown He is fighting for us. Just a few days later, fight us and wipe us out. Verse 5. Dust on their heads. And Joshua, we'll stop there for right now. Complaint. Joshua said, "Alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. To me, that sounds a lot like the complaints that the encountered. The Lord stand faith. And it's always kind of surprising. I always, God tells Joshua exactly how to figure out who it is that's taken plunder from Jericho. And so they have this big dramatic in which they have the 12 tribes step forward, and God said, okay, it was this tribe. And then they take from that tribe, here's all the clans that make up that tribe. It was that clan. And then they from that clan come forward. This family. Replied, it is true. The road He wasn't stealing. Warranted. Judges sin different. Done. I mean, the Bible tells us and about it. We aren't hurting anyone. It's just a real victim. I'm sure that there's many modern out there but surely pornography is a big one, right? The statistics tell us that this Jesus but there's some other apps that are less expensive. Ten and 11. People in the battle. See how a story that when his whole family